after a bit of a gap thanks to the festive season. But today we are going to resume back in our study of Gita in the Gita on the Go. Now we have been studying about what Krishna is telling Arjun from the 11th shloka of the second chapter onwards till the 30th shloka. Krishna is going to give Arjun a knowledge about his real self. He is transported to another world, the spiritual world. Well, at least figuratively. Because when we try to understand the real basis of our existence is the spiritual part of ourselves, then that time we are transported to a different platform. And that is what makes us stronger, more equipoised and self-realized. Now, we have seen in the shloka number 11, 12 and 13, Krishna has told Arjun that you are mourning for something that is not worth mourning for. You're mourning for the bodies of these relatives that you're facing in the battlefield. But do you know, Arjun? Let me tell you, they are not their bodies, and neither are you. We are actually souls. The real entities that are living within the bodies are the spirit souls, which have occupied these bodies only on a temporary basis. We also talked about the fact that the bodies are just mere bag of chemicals. And can just a bag of chemicals constitute life? The scientists have actually done their best. They're actually trying their best. They're researching to find out what is it that makes life tick. Till now, no scientist has been able to make life, to create life. And the theories that dead matter, this carbon, hydrogen, oxygen that we see around us that make our gross bodies can give rise to consciousness is fast losing ground. Even the scientists with their extensive researches are now want to believe that life is not just this compilation of the elements that we see as our gross bodies. It is something different. Well, so to speak, when a person dies, the chemical composition of the body remains the same just after the death as well as before it. Then what is it that changes? What is it that goes out of the body that we are wanted to say that the person has gone away? Now, a lot of things in our day-to-day usage of the terminology also indicates that we have this inherent logical sense that we are not these bodies. Life is not made of the body. It is a separate spiritual spark which is inside this body on rent in this accommodation that we call as the body. Well, today we will see one step further. In shloka number 14, Krishna had impressed on Arjun the importance of being tolerant. Even if you are attached to this body of yours and to the relations which are attached to your body, still Arjun, tolerate. Because if you tolerate, you will become eligible for liberation. Let us see now in the shloka number 2.15 how one becomes eligible for liberation if one is tolerant. But first the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much for for joining me on these sessions. So today we are taking up shloka number 2.15, a very important message that Krishna has to give to Arjun. Now the shloka says, Yam hi na vyathanti ete purusham purusharshabha sam dukkham sukham dhiram so amritatvaya kalpate. A beautiful shloka. I will try to translate it loosely in the shloka form in English. Now this shloka says, one who is not disturbed, the one who is the best amongst men, by the joy and distress in his life, he is eligible for liberation. So we have here made successfully a sort of poetic translation of this shloka. So this shloka says that one who is not disturbed, not bewildered by these type of changes that are taking place in the life, like sometimes a lot of distress, sometimes a lot of happiness, one who remains equipoised in the face of either joy or sorrow is the one who is the best among men, and he is eligible for liberation. A very clear message Krishna gives us here. In fact, in many of the further chapters also, where Krishna entails the good qualities of a person, he attaches a lot of importance on samata. Samata means to be equal, to react or respond equally to different situations in life. Like we talked in the earlier session, a person's strength is known by how good a buffer he is. दिन में जिंदगी में चाहे कितने भी उतार चढ़ाव आए, लेकिन हम कितने धीर, कितने सम बने रह सकते हैं, उस चीज पर डिपेंड करता है कि हम कितने ज्यादा अपनी लाइफ को नॉर्मली चला सकते हैं. Now here in this particular shloka, Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that one who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness. Now, it is very important that for a person to be eligible for liberation, for a person to be eligible to break the bondage of this material world, the person be equipoised in all sorts of situations in life. Now, Srila Prabhupada goes on to tell us in the purport that the Varnashram system, we have heard about the Varnashram systems in which every person's qualities have been delineated, or let us say defined properly, his role in the society and his duties in a particular stage of life, be it brahmacharya, be it grihastha, be it vanaprastha or sannyasa. So these are the stages which slowly move a person's consciousness towards the direction that he becomes a dhira, a sober person, a tolerant person, because he stops attaching importance to, I would say too much importance to the changes that take place attached to this body. Of course, since we are in this body, since we are living in this world, there are going to be highs and lows. There are going to be ups and downs. But the person who doesn't get distracted by the highs or the lows, which means does not become either too happy in the highs and too sad in the lows, is the one who can remain focused on the target. Now, let's take a very simple analogy from a day-to-day life. Suppose there is a child or a student who is preparing for his IIT entrances. Of course, in the course of the preparation, there are going to be many disturbances, many distractions. Somebody, relatives come in the house. Sometimes some sad happenings may take place. But the student who can maintain his equipoised nature, the student who can maintain the balance of his mind, is the one who can prepare well and reach his goal of attaining the goal, that is getting the entrance or cleared, getting into the IIT. Similarly, we as human beings must have our goals clear. What is the purpose of human life? Well, we have discussed this earlier. The real purpose of human life is not eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Unlike the animals. Well, it's very nicely given in our Shastras that the person who is just involved in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, be it basic like the animals or more glorified forms of these activities, is actually still living at the animalistic level. So the real purpose of human life is to know that we are not these bodies, we are the spirit souls. So unless we can achieve this goal of self-realization and connect ourselves back to God, our human life is wasted. The facility which has been provided to us by this human body in the form of a higher consciousness is a complete waste. So if that be our ultimate goal, then the distractions that come along with this body are actually unnecessary developments that we must learn to look at in a very equanimous manner. अगर हम सुखों और दुखों में खुद को स्थिर रख पाएंगे, धीर रख पाएंगे, तभी हम अपने ultimate goal तक आगे बढ़ पाएंगे. Now, Srila Prabhupada also goes on to explain that in this process of the Varanashram, when a person reaches the sannyas stage, he is ultimately ready to give up the bondages of his family, of his relatives, etc. Of course, it is a tough thing to do, but still, a person, because of following these rules and regulations of the Varnashram Dharma, becomes absolutely eligible for taking sannyasa at the end, giving up attachments of this body. And therefore, he is able to move very clearly from this life to another life which is completely spiritual in nature. So to make this jump from one platform to another, one must become equanimous. So the fruit of tolerance, the result of being tolerant, is that we become equanimous towards all situations that occur in our life. It's a beautiful message given by Krishna here. However, it doesn't mean by being tolerant that we become hard-hearted. Of course, the feelings in our heart will be there. We will feel sad when a near one departs. We will feel happy if our relatives are undergoing some spells of happiness. But what it means to be tolerant is to buffer our responses to all of these. It doesn't mean for us to become hearts of stone. Of course not. In fact, there is a small, I would say, anecdote that I would like to relate here, that a person goes to a guru and says that I want to take sannyas. And I think I've become more or less eligible for that because I am no longer disturbed and I'm no longer affected by what's happening. So the guru asks him, how come you say that you're not affected? Now this person says, very recently I lost my wife. She was my wife for 40 years, but I did not shed even a single tear. See, I am not affected by all this. What the Guru says is going to surprise you. The Guru says, no, you're not yet ready to become a sannyasi. Please go away and practice more and come back to me after some time. Now this person is quite zapped and says, why? Because I think I've become, kind of emotionless. And that's why I'm saying that I'm not affected by whatever is happening in my life. And that's a qualification of being a sannyasi. The Guru said, my dear, you've got it all wrong. To be equipoised doesn't mean to become emotionless. If you lost your wife for 40 years and you did not shed even a single tear, it means you have lost all compassion from your heart. She served you for 40 years and you did not feel any emotion when she left you. So to be a sannyasi doesn't mean to be emotionless. To become a sannyasi means that you have superior emotions of compassion towards every living entity in this world and not just your own relatives. You see, quite the contrary, as the general idea of being a sannyasi means that you become emotionless even, for your own relatives. But it actually means that you start having those high emotions, not just for your near and dear ones, not for the relatives of your blood and skin, that means of this body, but the relatives of your soul, which means practically every single living entity in this world is a part and parcel of Krishna, as am I. So to feel these superior high emotions, to feel the pain of every living entity is what it means to be a sannyasi. So that actually is quite an eye-opener. And to be a sannyasi, you do not need to take up the typical garbs, It doesn't mean कि हम भगवा धारण कर लें और हिमालय की चोटी पर जाकर बैठ जाएं, हम सबने संन्यास ले लिया. आगे के चैप्टर्स में कृष्णा समझाएंगे कि संन्यास लेने का एक्चुअल अर्थ ये होता है कि हम जहाँ हैं वहाँ रहते हुए भी अपने हृदय को इतना शुद्ध करें, अपनी कॉन्शियसनेस को इतने हाई प्लेटफॉर्म पर पहुँचाएं कि हम सुखों और दुखों से डिटैच्ड रहें, लेकिन हमारे दिल में हर लिविंग बीइंग के लिए complete compassion ho. So that's the message that Krishna is going to elaborate on in the further verses. But for now, we must take home this lesson that to be equipoised in all sorts of situations is very important, so that we do not lose track of our goal. We do not lose sight of where we were actually growing. Just like a person who's traveling by car, maybe to his office, he has to reach in time for a meeting, suddenly gets grazed or hit by another car, and it promises to be a bad situation. Everybody just gets down to fight as to how this happened. Now, a person who just gets into the fight, into the broil like that, and just doesn't care about that he had to reach in time, is not a person who we would call equipoised. So a person who knows that I have to reach the office on time no matter what would actually brush off this distraction for the time being. Okay, let me just get over with and let me go ahead on my path. So take your path. Do not get distracted by the highs and lows of life to reach the destination right in time. So that's the message for today. Hare Krishna, keep chanting and be happy.